We have another Dragon-Fall chat. This one's going to be more of a deep dive on Aetherium by Anvil 8 Games. From Anvil 8 Games, we have Brian Nero. Thanks for joining us, old friend. And then, of course, joining us is Josh. Hey,
Hello.
Josh. How you doing? So, Aetherium was your launch game, but we do see that, and you are now breaking into the role-playing stuff with it. I was showing it before. Got it. It's very nice. Like I like I like a lot of the systems. I actually know how to play this more than the board game. What was the big? I mean, you know me. That's just my
Yeah, yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's the reason for the season for me. So, like, tell us about Ethereum first, and I kind of want to know some of the differences between them, like what
Absolutely.
the challenges were. But
Uh,
first, I'm getting ahead of myself. What is Ethereum?
so originally it was a cyberpunk tabletop miniatures board game where you basically you're playing in the virtual reality. So people have downloaded their consciousness into this space, and that's where the game itself happens. Um, it's set in the kind of not too different, distant future, 2247. Um, and one of the cool concepts in the game itself is that there's a time dilation between reality and the virtual world. So, like 1 hour in the material world is 12 hours essentially in the. So basically, time stops mattering basically because people are living their whole lives in different ways in the virtual world. So it started as a tabletop miniatures board game. And we had, when we started to build an RPG, we had a ton of like the fans say like, we want an RPG, we want an RPG. And so we're like, all right, let's do it then. And we didn't initially plan on doing it in Ethereum, but it just became a thing. So, and that was cool because there was, the board game and the miniatures board game was kind of growing. We had to release a new faction every year. We've got 7 factions now. We got 8th on the way.
What's the eighth one?
We call them the flatliners right now. The name's going to change, but basically they're people that have died in the material world while their consciousness was stuck in the virtual world,
Oh, cool.
and their personality doesn't blink out right away. So,
Is there ever? Can you do that intentionally, or is it always a?
some people are trying to do it intentionally. Yeah, some people are trying to learn how to do it intentionally. Sometimes it has to be something like cataclysmic. Like there's a couple kind of apocalyptic events that happen. Cities decimated in the real world, and a lot of the people that were there for that moment because of the psychic shock have lingered. Things like that. So we're building out the board game, and then the RPG became a thing. That was pretty wild to develop. I mean, talk about taking there's a lot of things that we kind of waved our hand at on the board game that you don't really have to think through fully. That you really need to know in the RPG. And
thankfully, it's not all just formulas after formulas like some games too. Like there's some stuff that's pretty boiled down in there still. Where you're not. I just want people to know it doesn't mean that you've added 2 factors of how complicated the game is.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, I think
Because that scares me as a game master.
No, I think we designed it, and the guy who did really all the heavy lifting in this, he just joined the company actually. Aaron Darland had just joined the company. He came over from Weird, from Malifaux, and we were just like, okay, do this thing, and he was like, what, wait, what, what just happened? So we kind of ambushed him with it a little bit, but he did a fantastic job of building a system that kind of gets out of your way. Like it gives you, ways to do things, basically whatever you want, because it's a virtual reality. If you said, hey, look, I want a flying dolphin, like there's a way to do that. You kind of got to figure it out, and it might be kind of difficult, but you can make that happen if you want to. Because everything's a program in this world, you just have to build the program one way or another. And that's what it is. So we kind of built like a scaffolding and then get out of the way, and then players can kind of do what they want with it.
Does that give you a lot of room for expansion upon it? I did see that some like adventures and stuff when I
Yeah.
downloaded mine. Like, is there stuff in the mix to kind of like some of those like really creepy like monoliths and stuff that are out there that are just like white noise that scramble you if you get too close to them and stuff like that. If I remember correctly. So like I know you probably expand upon it more in the RPG book, but it's like there's still some esoteric stuff to it that I think you could delve into.
Yeah.
Is that a plan for Ethereum RPGs?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've released kind of some one shots that kind of point in different directions, and well, especially now because, like, for example, like I mentioned, we got almost 8 factions. There's different, parts of the world to get into. One of the other things we did in the RPG that doesn't happen at all in the board game is you can actually log off and play in the meat space if you want to. And it's pretty dark. It's pretty grim to be there. But I mean, you can build your adventure where you have to go do something in the meat space and then get back on online and get back into the virtual reality to kind of be, your best self again and do what you need to do.
Just having withdrawal the entire time.
Yeah, I mean that's our kind of thought process, is that people are much prefer to be online than if you can imagine a reality where people prefer to be online. Then that's
I don't know. I'm on 5G right now.
We came up with that. Yeah. It's like,
yeah. What are we doing right now?
So we talked about factions to kind of go back to the original Aetherium one. Do you want to? I mean, there's 7 going on 8 factions. So when Brian Nero plays the game, what faction do you gravitate towards and why?
Boy, there's 2 that I go towards, and they're very different. Yeah. So what's interesting is the 4th faction we released is actually the first one I wrote. And it was kind of a group of pioneer explorer types, because the idea in this virtual reality is that the kind of raw substance, if there's such a thing in virtual reality, is toxic to the human mind. So they build they find first these nodes, and they build pylons off of that create like kind of habitable spaces. They're like these bubbles of habitable space, and they're it's the support structures of the reality. So there's all these kind of floating in this, like you said, the white noise, or we call it the quantum noise. These kind of floating, aspects of reality that you can kind of pop into. So anyway, I wrote initially the people that kind of push out into the quantum noise and the pioneer explorers that, kind of build new things. Then we went back and said, like, you can't like start out there. You got to actually build the core of the reality first. So we built the kind of fascist police state and the anarchists that are kind of the natural antagonists. They see themselves as freedom fighters, but they're kind of reckless, so sometimes it's hard to tell if there is actually a plan there, or if they're just trying to burn the whole thing down. That type of thing.
And those are the 2 in the box set.
Those are 2 in the box set, and since doing that, the anarchists have become my favorite. That's who I play. I would say probably 7 times out of 10. Okay.
What's their play style, or what attracts you to them specifically?
So one of the things, there's a couple different things. So the way the game works is that you kind of have like 3 levels of types of character, and you balance the game by selecting, like a certain representation from each set. So I have like 1 avatar and 2 functions and 2 subroutines or something like that. The anarchists have my 2 favorite avatars, or kind of leaders, and one of them is pretty punchy. He was kind of designed off the Guy Fawkes thing, that type of thing. The other is a puppeteer, and he's my absolute favorite. And he doesn't, he's this kind of master manipulator, and he doesn't know how not to move the board around. So he's always, things are always shifting around with him. And he's just tons of fun to play because he introduces this, he plays to the best mechanics of the game, I think.
And with disastrous results sometimes for you?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm really great at the game. I'll have to admit, like I don't necessarily, I lose fairly often, but I'm okay with that because I enjoy myself, Yeah.
And the other one, is that the Explorer?
It was the Explorers until the most recent faction that we just released. They're called the Wardens of Tianran, and they're these kind of they're kind of monks, I guess, the warrior monk class. And basically they don't see it as a virtual reality. They see it as an alternate dimension. and they believe it's a spiritual dimension. And so they're pretty pissed off that people are like building shopping malls in it and stuff like that, right? So they're kind of come in. And actually, the big guy that I showed you last time, this kind of massive dude, is one of them. This kind of meditating guy. I don't know if you can see him or not. They're part of that faction, and I just love them because they're all about like the nitty gritty of the reality. You know, if you're thinking like in Matrix terms, they're the guys that see the ones and zeros kind of going up and down.
How does that turn into playstyle?
So playstyle, they're all about. I mean, they're pretty. They've got some pretty punchy stuff, but they're more about, again, like playing off the terrain on the tiles and things like that, and kind of warping the reality again.
So what you're saying is that you're a manipulative person.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more of an anarchist than I ever realized I was, and yeah.
You're just letting people get in their way. So for the Ethereum, now that it's kind of able to spread its legs, you could pull a lot of different inspirations. But like when you were first looking into it, like what inspired you the most with Ethereum?
Yeah, I was teaching English at the time at DePaul still, and I was teaching a course on dystopian literature, and I taught Gibson's Neuromancer.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and that had like everything to do with what this was, or what this is.
Are there no cell phones in?
There are some, yeah. There's not. You're not going to pass a bank of payphones unless you, yeah, yeah, exactly. No, Gibson. I think I like Gibson for that reason by saying like, yeah, okay, I got some things right, but like payphones, like who would have thought that there's no such thing as a payphone anymore? No, I just loved it. I love Neuromancer. I love that whole trilogy. Count Zero. I love a lot as well, and it was a huge inspiration for everything. I mean, even a phrase like the meat space, I'm pretty sure is taken straight from him.
It would be awesome if you got to be listed as one of the RPG games that he's like, I'm not going to sue him. I stole stuff too, but I'm not going to read it. Like, like everyone, people still to this day on Twitter with that dude are like, have you ever heard of Cyberpunk? Have you ever heard of Shadowrun? And he's like, yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So when people are asking if they've heard, if William Gibson, if he's heard of Ethereum, you've arrived.
I could just retire that day. My work here is done. Yeah.
So we need to start a Twitter campaign.
I just tweeted 5 times at him, so I got blocked already.
Fantastic. Yeah. That would be something.
So with that, so you've got the 7 factions, 8 on the way.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the core book, and then everything else has been digital. Is there any physical stuff for the RPGs coming out? I think I saw you say something about a screen.
We've got a GM screen coming out that you'll be able to get. One of the artists did just this really cool. I grew up with my brothers, playing D&D, and there were some of the old GM screens that I remember that were just like sprawling artwork that told these different stories, and there was all these things going on. So that was definitely something I was like, we got to do one of those. Like, how can you have an RPG and not have?
And is this brand new artwork? Completely new artwork?
Entirely new.
Oh, yeah. I love that for the GM screen. The GM screen is almost always the cover of the damn book. No. And I'm glad that you're branching out.
Yeah, it's something nobody's ever seen before, and I love it. I mean, I stare at it all the time, actually. So,
is it the background of your phone?
No, that's my children. But yeah, I know. It means I'm not really committed, doesn't it? But no, that's been really cool. And we do have some other stuff. I mean, we released a number of one-shots for the RPG on our Drive-Thru RPG. We've got kind of bigger expansions in the work. I don't know when exactly they're coming out, but things that start to look at, like, I talked about those kind of bubbles of different realities. And so one of them is controlled, or a number of them are controlled by the fascist police state. None of them are the corporate cyber ninjas control some more. And so we're starting to kind of build out some of those spaces, and those are going to be in like supplemental, the actual supplements. So like, if you're going to
I love that kind of stuff. Like even, and I do want to play Ethereum. When did I buy it from you? In March? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
what chance have I had to play it that then, like,
Yeah, I know.
like it sucked.
Yeah.
Um,
To get into a
but
new system now too, I think it's just even harder because you're not like,
yeah, yeah, because you can always have that session zero where you just get like, beer and pizza and like go through the
yeah,
book and
yeah,
kind of like, it's not even that. Like you could just like a game master could be like, these are the three systems I'd like to play, and then you choose one. Like
right.
that's not even just out the window. You just tell people now. So I think that's whatever. That's whatever. I'm looking forward to play it when I play it. But like those longer form ones, I like that stuff. And what I've noticed is a lot of companies were working on like con one shots. And
Hmm.
now they're working on more like letting their hair down and getting them like more nitty gritty and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's kind of what you've seen in 2020 for what like your output for that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we have had the kind of one shots, a couple we've kind of trickled out, but there is definitely underneath that, and independent, I should say, of the supplement books that I've been talking about, a kind of bigger narrative, like a five. It probably could be played over 5 sessions or more, really,
Mhm.
like a bigger campaign type of style, where the give you some more time for character development and growth and kind of thinking about longer term.
Five's a good sweet spot. Five's a
Yeah.
very good sweet spot. I mean, like some people would be like, that's a good end and beginning for that capstone right there, and then you can do time lapses and stuff like that after what you have done as players.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, so for Ethereum, Josh, you own the box set, right?
I do.
Um, so
And
the box set is, and I guess we don't really care about talking about money right now. Um, but I mean, that's probably the best value. But then you've got 6 factions with the seventh on the way or eighth on the way,
Yeah.
and custom dice. Like, where can we? Like, what's the best way to support Ethereum if we're looking to get into it?
Our online store, I think, is going to be the best, easiest anyway.
You
And
get the
that's
most money from direct sales, really?
yeah, we do. Yeah, definitely. So we very much appreciate that. Yeah. Um, I mean, if you're local, I don't know if you're local to the Chicago area, Games Plus has pretty much everything we carry. A couple other
Yep.
stores around the area. Um, but yeah, I mean, for us, I mean, obviously we want to support them because they're good to us. We love those guys. Um,
I mean, they're pretty much an institution these
they
days.
are. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I used to go to that store when I was about 80, 86 or so, 84, I think even I was going there.
Trying
Oh,
to age yourself. I wasn't getting past the western suburbs. I think the first time I got into nerdy stuff was like I was like 12 and Magic the Gathering came out, and I
yeah.
was in a comic book store and I bought that, and then I talked to them, my parents. No, I must have been younger, but I was probably like 10.
Yeah.
And then I talked to them the next year to take me to like a little mini convention that was like in a sports center right there. Like
Yeah.
a little,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it was a gymnasium
Like
with tables.
they've got one like that up in Rockford now, don't they?
Yeah. And
Yeah, they
then
do.
this guy did a Shadowrun demo for us, and then my friends and I just played Grand Theft Auto in Shadowrun before Grand Theft Auto was a thing while we were children. So
Cool.
figured out D&D and all that stuff. So I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like if that's like, but like that's like a pretty great stomping ground. Has it changed a lot in the 27?
Well, so back then it was actually on the other side of the railroad tracks. Hadn't moved to the current spot. Um, but yeah, like I mean, I had two older brothers growing up in the '80s, and they were really into D&D, and so we'd gone up to Gen Con up in when it was
Mhm.
up in Milwaukee and stuff like that. And but yeah, so from them, I kind of, obviously you look up to your older brothers, right? So I'd kind of like gotten a lot of my interest and stuff
I'm
like
the
that from
oldest, and I don't feel like that particularly happened for me. But I know what you're saying.
them. Well,
I don't have any brothers.
I shouldn't comment, should I? Yeah.
Let's not talk about. Let's not talk
It's
about video games.
funny talking about Games Plus changing. Now, I got into gaming very late. Uh, 10 years ago, something like that. And Games Plus is what it is, and it's always been the same. I don't know if you've been there recently. So
No, I haven't.
we ventured out of the house. I told my wife I need to go someplace and do something that's a lot of fun. And we took a drive up to Games Plus, which is a hike for me because I live
Yeah.
way on the other side of town. And they redid everything. Everything's in a different place now,
Oh, really?
and it was kind of mind blowing. I mean, it's all the same stuff is there. It's actually better. The organization is much better. Uh, but like all the paints and stuff that used to be kind of in those little aisles right across from the register
Yeah, yeah.
are
That's really
now
neat.
in the long aisle just past the doors into the gaming room.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
whole area is all the modeling supplies now, and it's clear. But when I went in, I was expecting it's going to be the same. I'm
And
going to work.
I don't want to put any thoughts on people's heads, but did they move the easiest thing to shoplift to the easiest place to shoplift from?
No. Well,
I don't. I
I
don't
don't
know.
think so.
There are plenty of small things in plenty of
They could
places, and that's
Yeah,
they could
yeah.
just
You would have to walk. You'd have to walk long. If it was back in those long aisles, that's kind of past the register
hey
and back towards
Josh,
the.
you've got the MDF miniature of it. Bring it out and show us. Give us a tour.
oh,
Of the
you
store
know,
itself.
I do. I have a 28 millimeter Games Plus with all of the furnishings and
That's awesome.
cables, and
Get
it's
diagram it. Yeah.
it's only partially painted, and I haven't assembled it, so
It's embarrassing.
it is
I
a
got to get together,
project.
man.
It is an
Well,
institution. That's a great place.
yeah, no, it is great. It's nice to hear that you can pick up Ethereum there. Do you have anything like about Ethereum you'd want to do any parting comments on, or I feel like we gave a pretty decent overview, but every single one of us kind of know, like you know it all. I know the RPG stuff, and then he knows the board game. So it's
Yeah.
like, what did we miss,
Well,
guys?
I don't really miss anything. I think that, for me anyway, one of the cool things about it is you can, do either thing. You can, like, if RPG is your jam, then you go for
Yeah.
that. If miniatures are your jam, that's there for you. And if you want miniatures for your RPG, that's there for you too, so.
I
And
was
then
I
you're
was
gonna
just
do
gonna say that if you're looking for cool anarchist miniatures for some other game, uh, they're really good. The sculpts are fantastic. They're flavorful, and they're a lot of fun. Uh, and there's a lot of variety there, so it's worth looking at just if you're a fan of miniatures in general. Besides the game, which is also good.
Thanks.
I mean, Brian's not going to tell you not to buy it and use it elsewhere either. So
No, I wouldn't say that.
yeah, that would be pretty
Definitely.
fun. Yeah, man, thanks. I appreciate it. I was like, I'm excited for the stuff that's in the horizon for it. I think the overall aesthetic just checks a lot of boxes for me. I mean, I love a good mirror shades dystopian thing,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, thanks for spending this time with us, and I think everyone would be worthwhile to support Anvil and Aetherium, who have been supporting the Dragon-Fall Charitable Foundation since day one. So,
Pleasure.
love you.
Love you.